So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today. We will get started in just 2 minutes, just hoping that some more people are logging on. I welcome you to put in the chat section how you're doing today. Are you having a good day? I know it's cold out there. Great. Awesome. Looks like everyone's having a good day. I'm glad to hear. All righty, so we'll just give 1 more minute and then we will get started. Awesome. I love your energy. We got a lot of great information for you all today. All righty, so it's 2 minutes after the hour. So again, welcome everyone. Welcome to our webinar today, Renew in 2022, your year-long guide to health, happiness, and wellness. My name is Ayana Mbonu. I am with WorkWell NYC. I am the Mental Health Engagement Manager, and it's my pleasure to be presenting this workshop today. So whether you are really still going strong with your New Year's resolutions or you want to reboot, we're here to offer you some ideas to consider. So we're going to talk about wellness and what that looks like for you. We're going to touch on values and goals and how mindfulness can be helpful in practice. We're going to encourage you to practice some optimism. And really at the end, we're going to really encourage you to think about some action plans of what you would like to do in the next week or so. So we have a wonderful, great group of panelists. And I'd just like to introduce them to you. So we have Dr. Beth LaGrange. She's the Associate Director and Clinical Supervisor of Mental Health Services at Rikers Island. We are joined by Rennie John. He's our Wellness Coordinator with the New York City Administration for Children's Services. And we have our super champion, Lizette Robinson. She's a Director of Peace Officers over at New York City Human Resources Administration. And so they will be offering lots of information, speaking from their own perspective about all the things we're going to share with you today. So I'll tell you a little bit about WorkWell NYC. Today's presentation, of course, is brought to you by WorkWell NYC. We are your worksite wellness program, and our goal here is to create work sites that make it easier for our employees to live healthy, active lifestyles. And as you can see there, we do it in 5 different areas. So that's move more, our physical activity, eat well, healthy eating. So we've done cooking demonstrations and Q&As on health and nutrition. Take Action is our primary care prevention, so that some of our programming around Take Action is like your flu clinics and our hypertension, diabetes programming. And then it's Be Well. We are Be Well, and we are presenting you this workshop today, and we are your mental health and resiliency programming. And then there's Project Build, our health equity program. And so they bring more attention to health equity and inequities. And that's WorkWell in a nutshell. So we're going to check in and just review a variety of considerations and continuing to think about our year ahead in planning. So I would love for you to, in the chat section, just click on this link. You're going to need this. Yeah, you're going to need this handout. So if you can just click on the link right now, and I'll just talk a little bit about the 8 dimensions of wellness. So as you pull up this handout, you'll see that there are 8 dimensions of wellness. And so when we think about wellness, the link is not working. It's not happening. Oh, 1 second. Let me just make sure. 1 second, guys. All righty. Okay, thank you, Khadeen, for helping. Okay. I think this is helpful. I think that'll work as well. Okay, awesome. So as you pull up the, okay, you got it. All right, awesome. So as you pull up the worksheet, just talk a little bit about 8 dimensions of wellness. So it's occupational, mental, emotional, intellectual, physical, environmental, social, financial, and spiritual. I don't know about you, but when I think about my life and wellness, I never think of all of those areas, right? But so now that we know this information, wellness is really a holistic integration of physical, mental, and spiritual well-being, fueling the body and engaging the mind and nurturing the spirit. And so when we think about wellness, we should be thinking about all of these areas. It's always wellness is always striving for health and living our lives fully. But it's personalized, right? When you think of those dimensions, we're not encouraging you to, balance them out, right? We want them to should really aim to strive for personal harmony, whatever that means for you. So we all have our natural priorities and approaches and aspirations, and we're just encouraging you to kind of think about those things for yourself. And so hopefully you all have had a chance to pull up the handout. And so where are you on your wellness journey? We'd really love for you to kind of score for yourself. And so next slide, please. Scoring for yourself. Number 1, do you really need help in this area? Is it an area where you're really lacking, would be a 1, or 5 would be you're completely happy in that area and you're doing really well. So just for myself, I know that physical is an area that I'm maybe not necessarily a 1, but I'm 2. I'm okay. I can do a bit better in that area. But I'm really solid in my spiritual area, emotional area, maybe 4. And so I just want you to think about where you are on your wellness journey. So while you do that, we'll hear from our panelists. So next slide, please. So panelists, you had this ahead of time. I'd love to hear, are you touching all 8 dimensions of your wellness? Rennie?
Hi, everyone. My name is Rennie John. I'm the ACS Wellness Coordinator. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I am not optimal for everyone. I think definitely emotionally and social and occupational is 3 of my highest. And of course, physical, I'm not there yet. I definitely need to work on that, and the financial part. The holidays just passed. I had my son with me, so he put a huge dent in the financial part. So definitely I have a little more work to do in that area over the next few months. But yeah, that's where I stand within that. So financial and physical are like a 2 on a 3 for me, and everything else. Social, occupational, emotional is pretty high up on my list right now.
Thank you. And yes, Lucette, please do jump in.
Oh, goodness sakes. All right. So now I think for me, I'm really solid with my spiritual, the intellectual, the physical, I'm really good on. And by the way, I'm sorry, my name is Lucette Robinson. And yes, I actually am a director of a bunch of investigators over here in IREA. But as a side gig, I'm actually a personal trainer. So all of this health and wellness stuff is definitely a passion of mine. So as I was saying, socially I'm good, physical good, intellectual But in respect to what I need to work on, we were discussing this before about environmental. I definitely have to, I've had this goal of decluttering my space for a few years now, and I've got to get to it. And then financial, right? We're all city workers, so that's always an area that is a bit of a challenge. So, but yeah, so the other areas that I'm actually fairly happy with.
Awesome, wonderful. And so I see in the chat section, there's some people who did not, that signed on late. So I'm just gonna put the link again in the, I'm just gonna put the link again. And please just copy and paste it in your browser and it should pull up, okay? And so I'd love to hear from some of the persons in the chat section. Thank you, Cheryl. If you know, any high points, any particular area of the dimensions that you would want to work on, you can add it into the chat section. Better in all areas, right? I'm sure you're in good company, Cheryl. Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you for that. Social, physical, twos, absolutely. Working, So yeah, and financial, awesome. Environmental, yeah. And so some of these things, you know, like I never really thought about when you said, environmental. Clutter is something that's definitely high up on my list. So I totally agree. And it makes, whenever I do declutter, it just clears my mind. So yes, absolutely.
I'm always packing away stuff. Like I can't help it. I'm always packing, I'm always moving stuff because I don't like it anymore. Like even when I go visit my mom in Trinidad, it's like, okay, we need to do something here. She's like, leave it alone. I'm like, Ma, come on.
Yeah. And so I'm really happy to hear that everyone has had a chance to look at the wheel and look at and kind of assess for themselves. So next slide, please.
Yeah, and I call myself a functional hoarder. I've learned how to pack things away, and I got to get rid of stuff. It's got to go.
So that's what we call it now.
So we're going to touch on some values and goals. Awesome. Next slide. So values, as you see on the screen, it's your heart's deepest desires for how you want to behave and treat yourself and others. So values don't really change, right? Values are words that describe how we want to behave in this moment and on an ongoing basis. Values guide our actions and foster that psychological flexibility, right? So psychological flexibility helps us to be able to be more reactive, right? Be able to react to life's challenges. So values are a helpful guide for setting goals. They're not our goals because goals change, but values pretty much are stable. You may add to your values, but for the most part, goals are time limited usually. And when we think about setting goals for ourselves, it's important to kind of look at our values. Because our values can translate into flexible actions for ourselves. And like you see here on the screen, goals are those concrete and achievable events or objects that help you to obtain while working on a value path. And so for myself, peace is an important value for me. Taking care of my family is a very important value for me. And so when I change that into a goal, you know, my job helps me to take care of my family. So my goal is really to excel at work so that I can do well and continue to grow professionally and continue to take care of my family. Peace, for me, like I said, is a value for me. And so when I think about creating a value, you know, I really think about what I bring into my life, right? Because peace is so important for me. So I'd love to hear from our panelists. Just before I hear from you, I just want to talk about one thing that I think is really important. Next slide, please. And so what you see on the screen is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so I just want to really just bring it to the forefront and attention that, you know, for some to take time to think about values and goals, it may be a luxury of time that they don't have. So it's really important, of course, to always take care of our immediate needs. So that's air, food, water, shelter, sleep, working, right? And so, you know, I think it's really important for us to acknowledge that, you know, we're here talking about values and goals, which are really important, but it's not a luxury that everyone has. And so I think it's important to really think about if this is something that is maybe you haven't learned or you haven't really thought much about values and goals. Just take a moment and think about how you can do things a little bit differently. Next slide. So I'd love to hear from our panelists. What are some of your values? What are some of your goals?
Well, I'll chime in. Some of my values. The truth is that I value integrity a great deal. I value a strong character. When you say you're going to do something, you'll do it. In Creole, it's called mun jour. People who are people of their word. People who, when you deal with them, you know you're going to get what they tell you they're going to bring to the table. And so those are definitely some of my values. And then in regards to my goals, is essentially living up to that, right? I mean, walking the walk and talking the talk. But it's interesting. Another value of mine, of course, is taking care of myself. As I get older, I realize that that becomes a greater priority. And so my goal is always to maintain my health and continue to take care of my body. So in respect to goals, I've got some challenges that I'm dealing with here at work with staff, and I want to essentially fix those issues as best I can. And so I'm signing up for a training that will help me with my staff. And then in regards to my goals, it's just a matter of, again, maintaining the well-being that I've established over the last few years, because again, it's become such a priority for me. So yeah, so that's how I do that.
That's awesome. So for me, in regards to values, I think responsiveness, being responsive, I think that's one of the things that's been lost on a lot of people who professionally and personally for a while now. I think these days there's so many ways to get in touch with people, and we have no reason not to be responsive, not to say, hey, hello. And I've done that a lot, and it's impacted me. I recognize that impacted me last year. A friend of mine died in April, and I didn't find out until October. And I reached out to him on Facebook in February saying happy birthday, and recognized all those months I could have been reaching out to know what happened. I didn't. So that kind of impacted me going forward to really reach out to folks, family, friends that I haven't seen in a while. Being humorous also is one of my core values because it lightens the load. You know, last few years within the pandemic, it's been really tough for a lot of us. And I think having people that make you laugh and being around people that make you laugh at times, it helps. Not at work so much, but you need to do your work and stuff. But it really, really helps. And congruence, it basically being true to my authentic self and communicating with that with others is extremely important to me. My goals is basic. One of the ones that we are all back in the office, and sometimes the gossip and the stuff in the office could really hamper you. So avoiding negativity in workplace, living according to my values is really important. You got to walk the walk and talk the talk in everything that you do right now, and improving the growth mindset. Always being open for growth, and those use daily affirmations to get through that whole process. And improving my financial management skills, I think, is one of the more important ones for me going forward this year.
Well, thank you, Rennie. Looks like you touched on all those areas and dimensions. I really appreciate it. And so, Beth, I'd love to hear from you. Do you want to share some of your value and a goal?
Sure. One value that I have, particularly as related to wellness, is balance. kind of balancing the accomplishments and the to-do list with being grateful for what's already here and having more joy, enjoying the trip, basically. Because at the end of the day, yes, we want to check items off the to-do list, but we want to enjoy ourselves. So it's working towards that balance. So one of my goals for this year is to more consistently keep up a gratitude practice, because that kind of trains our brain to pay attention and notice all the good things that we already have, and to be, here in this moment and enjoy it while we strive, as is natural, to accomplish as well. So working on the balance.
Awesome, thank you. And it looks like in the chat section, someone indicated inner peace. And another acknowledgement of COVID-19, it has been very difficult. We're almost ending year 2 of something that we just thought was going to be a few months, and so it's important to acknowledge that these last 2 years have been very difficult. There's been lots of losses, and I'm grateful that we're all here and we can all kind of think about the year ahead and plan for, overall wellness, to continue to keep ourselves well. So I'm going to hand this over to Dr. LaGrange, and to lead us in some mindfulness activities.
Okay, so let's just take a moment to be where we are here in this moment, because that's how it is, whether or not we wish it were something different. This is the moment we have. And closing your eyes if that feels comfortable, or else just relaxing your gaze downwards. And just taking a couple deep breaths to ground yourself. Big inhale. Big exhale. And another one. Checking in with yourself in this moment. Noticing any thoughts or feelings that you have in this moment. Our minds have the tendency to be racing towards the future or replaying the past. Just letting yourself have a moment of being here without worrying about what comes next or what already happened. One way to anchor oneself in the present is by checking in with the breath. Not trying to change it, just letting it be as it is. Just being aware of each inhale, each exhale. Seeing if you can follow a few breaths in a row. You might notice that your breath quickly, your mind gets distracted from the breath. And when you notice that, that means you're in the present moment again, and you can just invite your attention back to the breath. And finishing up this brief mindfulness meditation, you can open your eyes if they were closed, widening your attention back to your surroundings, back to your screen, So if you aren't a meditator, that was just an example of a brief mindfulness of breath exercise. And some people find it relaxing, sometimes not always. Oh, that was very relaxing, someone says, yeah. And so that's one of the common outcomes of meditation and mindfulness practices, along with others, of being able to focus your attention in a better way, being able to respond rather than to automatically react to things going on in your environment, lower blood pressure. I mean, there's all these, great things that can come about with mindfulness. But I want to talk a few minutes about another one, which is that it can help with habit change, which is, what we're discussing. I think we can move to the next slide. Yeah, so mindfulness in general, it's kind of the awareness that comes from moment to moment, noticing what's going on in your head, because those thoughts, they're always going on, whether or not we realize them or not. And a lot of people, when they try to meditate, they say, oh, I can't do this, I think too much. Well, really we are anyway. So the meditation helps us tune into them so that we don't get controlled by them as much. So through the practice, we get better at noticing more quickly what's going on in our body, our thoughts, and our feelings. So this can actually help us when we're trying to make new habits. And I think we could do the next slide. Perfect. And part of changing our habits is not only thinking, okay, I want to be healthier, I want to eat healthier, but it's noticing what the current behavior is. So then we can do the next slide. Yes. So our habits get set up by rewards. We do something because it feels good, or at least at some point it did. So an example might be that eating chocolate cake, all right, checking the chats, feels good when we are stressed out. So maybe we get in the habit of coming home from work, we've had a rough day, we have some cake sitting around, and it makes us feel better. So we've gotten in the habit of doing that. But then ultimately, it doesn't fit with our goals and values. So bringing mindfulness to it, we can start to kind of update the reward value. That short term, okay, and maybe at one time it was no big deal to occasionally have something that's very sugary or fatty, because it does set off the dopamine, it works, it does make us feel better. But over time, it leads to poorer health, it leads to guilt, it leads to, not feeling so good. So I'm going to the next slide. You can see the rewarding outcome is not so big anymore. And so this is where mindfulness can come in, because the more attention we bring to this, the more awareness, the more we can go out of autopilot and actually learn to make other choices, to realize that, this is not so good. We kind of build disenchantment. So there's kind of three phases of this. And I'm just kind of like rushing through all of these ideas. There's a researcher named Judson Brewer who does a lot of outcome studies around this and studying these small mindfulness moments many times throughout the day that can help with habit change. So the first one, for the next slide, is without even trying to change it, you can just notice the habit, like what's the trigger is. Oh, I get home and I'm stressed out. The behavior, I reach for the cake. The outcome, well, for a moment, I feel really good. It's a great distraction. I feel good, but then I feel guilty. I feel disappointed in myself. I, start making rules for tomorrow, what I will or won't eat. So just bringing the mindfulness to what is actually happening in those moments instead of just numbing out. So that's one way. And then the second is really waking up in that moment, that it's happening. Okay, I'm eating the cake now. How does it really taste? As long as I'm going to eat it, I might as well pay attention. And this is where the disenchantment is built. So when we try to, make these New Year's goals and then find that it's not sticking, we have the habit of beating ourselves up. And then what do we do when we feel bad about ourselves? We often go back to that same bad habit again. So this is where some loving kindness can come in, and self-compassion, to not beat ourselves up. And to then be able to move on to trying new behaviors. So that would be the third one, where we can bring in like curiosity or a mindfulness practice. Okay, I'm feeling stressed, but eating that cake is going to make me feel worse. So let me just sit here and feel the stress and figure out what do I really need right now. And this is how we can start to move the behaviors in a different direction. We tend to try to use willpower, and then when we fail, we think, oh, I just don't have enough willpower. But that's just part of how the brain works, really, is that when we're stressed or tired, the prefrontal cortex kind of gives way to the older parts of the brain that are just habit, they're fight, flight, and the willpower isn't there when we need it most. But by bringing mindfulness, we can try to, chip away at the habits and see that they're not really working for us that much. So I think that's enough. We can do questions if I skipped over any links there to bring that to you, but thank you. Back to you, Ayana.
We're definitely going to have a short Q&A at the end. So Beth, we'd love to hear a little bit more about some things that we can do. So next slide, we'd just like to encourage you to practice optimism. So start as you mean to go. So how do you begin your day? Choose what you want to focus on in the first few waking hours of the day. When you think about difficult things and how busy you will be at work, you're setting yourself up just for that. So instead, I encourage you to challenge yourself to find 3 things that you're looking forward to throughout the day. Are you planning to have lunch with a friend? Are you planning to have some free time to yourself in the evening? Just think of 3 things that are going to help you to kind of frame that day in a more positive way. If you have the luxury of not checking your email until you get to work, I suggest just don't check your email. I know that lots of us were remote during the height of the pandemic, and we have lots of things on our phone now. We have easy access, but if you're able to kind of shut off until you get into the office, I do recommend that. Collect positive experiences. Remind yourself when things have gone well in your life. I'm sure you have lots of positive experiences to kind of, reflect on. So perhaps you had a great night with friends. Most recently, you hosted a small dinner party, and that was really a lot of fun. Maybe you had a game night or a movie night with your family. Just kind of collect those ideas and kind of reflect on those throughout the day to kind of keep yourself feeling good. One thing I liked what Rennie said is that he uses a lot of humor, right, to kind of keep him well. And think about that. How do you can kind of infuse that into your day? And celebrate at every opportunity. It's really all too easy just to dismiss achievements like these things are expected. You're expected to have certain achievements in life, right? So they don't need any kind of fanfare. But I say, you know what? Celebrate all those little moments just to keep yourself happy, and optimistic that life is well and that you are well, and make the most of what goes right in your life, and do what feels good. And that's what I liked about, the 8 dimensions and knowing that, it's not like balance, so to speak. It's more about harmony, what feels good to you. So what puts you in a good mood? Is it watching movies? I know I have my Lifetime Sundays where I have to watch my sappy movies on Sunday, to get me started for the week. Is it listen to music? I know my house, we have dance parties. Not, I don't have a whole lot of rhythm, but I have fun, and that's all that's important. How about consider how to incorporate these things really into your daily life? Watch your self-talk. That's another thing that's really important. Oftentimes, unfortunately, that negative voice is our own, and how you talk to yourself really matters. the harshest messages we'll receive are usually, our own self-talk. So really be kind to yourself. The word should, many of us use that word, but shame comes along with the word should. So I encourage you to use the word swap it out with the word could, because the word could really does open up possibilities. And notice what you're letting in. Some days we spend too much time reacting to something that has been thrown our way. Beth said that earlier about mindfulness and how mindfulness helps us to be more responsive. And so think about what you're letting in and try to be a little bit more responsive. So I talked about checking emails at the beginning of the day. That can embroil you into those work issues, right? So stay offline until that specific time of the day when you have the ability to check those emails. And also social media, you might want to take a little break from social media if that's something that really gets you, that really triggers you. People only put their best life on social media, so it's not always a good barometer for what's going on in the world. And so if you feel like that might be something that might be difficult for you, I say just, assign a certain time of the day or maybe the week that you're going to check social media, and that be it.
And I actually just deactivated my Facebook and Instagram. I always take a break. And it's funny how my friends ask me why. Like, I just needed a break. Because it could get a little hard sometimes, like seeing all the messaging on social media and stuff like that, especially with everything happening now with violence all around the city and homelessness and stuff like that. And that's like being sent all through every medium possible. And so I had to take a break from social media. Yeah.
Well, Rennie, you are ahead of the game, because I was going to say, how do you practice optimism? So that's the next slide. So thank you for sharing. So I'd love to hear from the ladies on the panel. How do you practice optimism?
Well, I can tell you that all the stuff you were talking about in regards to celebrating the little victories and thinking about, okay, 3 things that I'm looking forward to today. I do that sort of thing all the time, because you have to, because frankly, we can't take anything for granted. I don't know if I'm going to be here tomorrow. And so I've got to make each day as good as I can make it, right? And it's interesting because I did the Hope project last night. And it was a little tough, I can tell you, because you mean it's 9 o'clock at night. And I'm thinking, okay, what did I sign myself up for? It's cold out, it's late. All I want to do is stay in my house. But we went out and we got it done. And at the end of it, you feel like, okay, I helped somebody. I contributed something positive to our city by doing it. And I'm feeling a little sleepy today, but it's going to be all right. And I can celebrate that today. And again, not take for granted that I was able to do that. And frankly, the truth is, when you're out on the street like that and you see people in such desperate situations, you think, oh my gosh, wow, I have a lot to be grateful for. I have a lot to be thankful for. And so it helps you keep things in perspective. But I tend to lean optimistic anyway. So this one's not that much of a challenge for me, but I know that, there's a lot of stuff that can take you down, and you've got to do what you need to do in order to keep yourself going in the right direction. So being mindful of what you're taking in is huge. And so you need to surround yourself with some people who care for you, who love you, who will tell you the truth about yourself, but also be your support and your friend. It's big stuff. But this is good.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Lucette, and thank you for getting out there yesterday, because and it seems like you have another person in the chat section was out there as well. And thank you for your service. And Beth, I'd love to hear from you. How do you practice optimism?
Yeah, well, optimism does not come naturally to me. I'm more of a pessimist, so I work on it. But one thing that helps me is when I find I'm being pessimistic and worrying about the worst possible outcomes, is just reflecting and remembering all the times that I've done this, and just the energy and time I've wasted worrying for bad outcomes that never happen. And even if those bad outcomes do happen, all that worrying didn't help prevent it anyway. So So like I said, it's a work in progress, but I find that helps, that like, why not be optimistic? Since the worrying and pessimism doesn't help anyway. And I believe that the optimism can actually, potentially help steer things in the better direction.
Absolutely. When people ask, what else to be, it's like, how else to live but to try to be optimistic, because otherwise there's no hope, right? And there is hope because we're all here today. And so to be optimistic is for me, it does take work because nobody is perfect. We're not robots, right? We don't do everything perfect each time. But for me, I know that that's the way I try to live my life. And it looks like that's what everyone is saying in the chat section is as well. One
Yeah,
person.
no, I need to. Oh, I'm sorry, Ayana. No,
Go ahead.
one thing I want to chime in on. I know for me, and this has been my experience, and I think it speaks to everyone. Frankly, I think we get what we're looking for,
Mhm.
right? If we look for the positive, we're going to see the positive. If we're looking for the negative, yeah, that's what we're going to see.
Mhm.
And so for me, I tend to go, yeah, no, let's look for the good in the situation as opposed to the bad.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, you know what, Lucette, my grandmother always say, you get what you ask for, and so if you ask for something positive, you're going to get it. If you ask for something negative, you're going to get it too. So I hear that. Rennie, you unmuted yourself. Did you want to say something?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes I have had to be optimistic a lot, especially it comes with the territory of the work that I do. I'm a public health person. So for this whole pandemic, I was contact tracing, and every day I would go out optimistic that, hey, it's going to end, it's going to end. And it gets really tough sometimes, especially when you're thinking about a pandemic. We've been so optimistic for this to end since 2020, but we've made some progress, then it goes back. And then I always have to be optimistic with folks, especially when I was knocking on doors and doing home visits to make sure I had to be optimistic, like, hey, this person is going to be okay. I'm going to see what help I could do for this person. And then in my job at ACS, doing wellness at ACS, you have to be optimistic. The staff does a lot of great work, and we are typically a 24-hour agency. And we have some of the most strenuous work in all of New York City, protecting the kids of New York City. So you have to be optimistic in your work that we're going to figure something out on a daily basis, whether it be daily, weekly, every minute, every hour. We have to be optimistic in the work that we do going forward. Yeah.
Awesome. This is all wonderful stuff, and I appreciate everyone's input. I think that sometimes it can be hard to be optimistic, and that's why wellness and really thinking about how we take care of ourselves is so important to help us to stay on track. And so I just want to move ahead because we are running out of time, and I want to make sure that we touch everything. So we started out talking about all these wonderful things about planning for the year ahead. So I encourage you to really think about your plan for the year ahead. And so when doing that, considering these things, really holding yourself kindly, understanding that change is not easy, but there's some tools that you can practice that can help you to, really think about, change and using mindfulness to, really help you to move along. What is the best thing that can happen? That optimistic view, answering for yourself, what can you do to increase the chances of that best thing happening? If you see a challenge, what do you foresee? What might be getting in the way of you achieving your goals? How can you maybe, structure your goals in a way that are small and achievable? And if plan A falls through, what's your plan B? Really kind of thinking about all these things as you, plan for, the rest of the year. Remain open and curious, growth mindset. I think that's what Rennie said earlier. That's one of his values, is just really be open. Our past, whatever that is, doesn't have to really determine our future. And just consider what you can do differently. Acknowledge that, sometimes life is difficult, but it doesn't always have to be that way. And being optimistic can be very helpful in that. And so next slide, please. What goal will you commit to in the next week? And so I'd love to hear from our panelists. What goal will you commit to in the next week? And really considering your wellness worksheet and the areas that you'd like to work a little bit more on.
Well, I know it's interesting. I was looking around my home this morning, and I realized that I still didn't put everything back after taking all my Christmas decorations down. So there's still stuff sitting around. I'm like, wait, hold on a second. I have to put the place completely back together. That would be helpful. Again, a little less clutter. But in respect to something that I want to commit to in the next week, well, I can get that done, certainly. But I know that one of the things that I've sort of been sort of wishy-washy on lately is getting my workouts in. So I will be working on that more. And then I know we talked about my son and contacting the therapist for our family therapy that we want to do. So I actually did what I said I was going to do, but I need to follow up now. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Lucette. And Beth, what are you going to do in the next week?
Yeah, so as far as, working on this balance value, I have recently started the gratitude writing each day. So I'm going to try to keep that practice up of just a couple of things that I'm grateful for the day. But then another dimension is the physical. I like many people just don't exercise regularly. I signed up for a 5K a couple months from now. So my goal this week is, if it's above freezing, I will go out and run at least a little bit. So
Awesome.
I have some days out.
Awesome. Well, I'll be thinking of you when I'm working out at home, because I'm a runner in my head, but it hasn't actually
We all are in our heads.
into activity yet. So I'm still walking. So it looks like in the chat section, lots of people want to start exercising, decluttering. This is all great stuff. Really think about it. Oh, and someone's reading Atomic Habits book that they bought a few months ago. And so I think that, breaking down our goals into small little chunks, like 1 week is like a perfect chunk of time that we can actually achieve something. So just think about what your goals are and just break them down so that you can achieve them in a small and quick time, and that'll build your confidence to keep going. All righty. Next slide, please. So just to summarize all the things that we talked about, wellness is not just your physical or mental health, it's holistic experience of your life. The key to being well is honoring the role each dimension plays in your life. Practice mindfulness is a useful tool to aid in habit change, and articulate your core values to help you identify your goals and understand your behaviors. Shift your perspective and choose an optimistic view, and hold yourself kindly when attempting to change a habit. Next slide. So some resources we want to share with you. Guided meditation. These slides will all be given to you, and we are recording. So this recording will be available to you later. But there's a guide for body scan meditation, mindful meditation that we have on our website. If you can jot these things down, don't worry. If you can't, you'll be getting these slides. We also have live on-demand classes that you can access on our YouTube channel, as well as our fitness calendar, where you can log on Zoom throughout the day and take part in our live digital classes. And all of these resources are found on our website. And so the Employee Assistance Program is our go-to for all the support that you might need related to mental health. And I feel like if you have a question around mental health, I think that you should definitely always call Employee Assistance Program. If you think that they may not be the right place, they can point you in the right direction. And their services are not only available to employees, but also their dependents. And this is how you can reach them. Next slide. New York City Well is also a wonderful resource. It's open to anyone. And what I think is unique about New York City Well is if you may be in close proximity with other people in your home, you may not have the privacy to have a conversation, but you can definitely text them. And this is a 24-hour service. Quick Q&A. I think we got 5 minutes. Any particular questions that you would like us to answer?
There are 2 in the Q&A chat, actually.
So first question, how can we find balance between knowing the need of our community and understanding our own limitations and those of our jobs or positions? So anyone like to answer that one? How do you find balance in actually taking care of your community and, you know, limitations that your job might have? I think just really thinking about what's important to you and how you can find time to do the things to give back to your community. So if it's during work hours, there may be opportunities through work where you can actually give back time, where you can volunteer time. If that's wonderful, but if there's not, how do you find time in your personal life to do that? I think just looking at your life overall, and I think that's part of our wellness journey, is this is kind of identify where we can do what we love. Also respectfully sharing those limitations with your supervisor. Well, I think you said it perfectly, Danielle, respectfully sharing those limitations with your supervisor, just that, you know, I can't say it any better. I think you said it just perfectly. We also have one question is what is important? What is important and do you task in small doses so you do not overwhelm yourself? I think you're gonna have to just think about what's important to you and breaking down those tasks. So for me, weight is always a concern, right? And I have a lot of weight to lose, but what I do is I say to myself, in 1 month, what can I lose? And breaking those things into small tasks so that I can actually achieve it and feel great about it. So I say, whatever your goal is, break it down into tasks that you think are really achievable so you can get them done.
I can tell you that I had a goal. This was back in 2016. I had to lose 35 pounds. I knew I had to lose some weight. And frankly, I know that work can be overwhelming. And so one of the things that I did was I was very intentional about just going out for a walk at lunchtime. That's all I did. I went 20 minutes one direction, 20 minutes back the other direction. And that's a 2-mile walk. And I started doing that every day. And sure enough, the weight started coming off, and then you feel better, and then you can do a little bit more, but you have to plan it. It's not going to just happen on its own. You have to be very intentional. You plan it out, and then things are going to get in the way. And again, I love how you say to be kind to yourself when things don't quite work out. That's huge, because beating yourself up isn't going to get you anywhere. But then you, like I said, you pick it right back up. Don't not do it because you happen to miss a couple of days. Just pick it right back up and keep going. And sure enough, the results you're looking for will come.
And Beth, do you have?
Yeah, if I could just piggyback on that. One of the most helpful pieces of advice from a friend once, who doesn't even remember giving me this advice, but I was about 80 pounds heavier, one of a few times where I've been much larger. And I had this all or nothing thinking of, I'm going to work out every day. I'm ready. I'm going to do this. And he was like, that's just not realistic. Is it going to be 2 times or 3 times per week that you go to the gym? Which one, 2 or 3? And I was like, okay, 3. But just breaking it down like that, like Lisette said, just it makes it much more doable, because otherwise you're setting yourself up for failure with these like huge all or nothing goals.
Awesome. All righty. Well, thanks, everybody. We do have a few more things we want to share with you before we go. Next slide, please. So next month is Heart Health Month. So we're going to have lots of activities for Heart Health Month. Next slide. So one thing that we'd love to share with you, launching in March, is our hypertension program. It's a 10-week program. It's all virtual, where employees will learn with our resident nutrition, will learn about hypertension and how to help themselves manage their hypertension. And self-care as well around hypertension. So if you're interested in it, please do go to this link on nyc.gov/HTN and visit our website to register. Next slide. Self-love. Next month, we are going to have a wonderful challenge around self-love, and there will be a mindful journaling opportunity as well as a paint and sip. And definitely go to our website, our upcoming events page, and you can register for all of these events. And please don't leave us yet because we do have a poll for you to just give us an idea of your thoughts around this workshop. How would you rate the quality of this workshop? It's really important that we get this information because we want to continue to improve and give you what you need. And so your information really is helpful to us in how you rate our presentations. And thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much. We really do appreciate having you here today. And we're very hopeful that you have gained some information. Oh, it looks like the majority of you really do appreciate and learned something new today. All righty. And art is life. Before you do leave, the Art is Life is another great opportunity to just be creative. And so Art is Life is an opportunity for all city employees to share their art with the rest of us. And so it's a wonderful way to just kind of communicate with each other and show your creative juices. And so please do log on to our website, and there's lots of information there how you can join in. If you aren't creative, there's other options for you to participate in this program as well. And so thank you again, everyone. Thank you to our panelists for joining in. I really do appreciate your input. And this is how you can continue to contact us. If you have any questions, any thoughts, use our email. Please do follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. We have quite a bit of information up there for you to choose from. So thank you again, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Ayana. This was fun.